could maybe potentially end up being on the trading block, something that the Raiders have not wanted to do. Have Davante Adams yesterday went to the team and said he preferred to be traded. There is going to be a very, very real market for Davante Adams every time.
8 days ago, I made a video telling you guys my theory that Davante Adams is about to be traded. And typically when I make a video like that, putting my theories out there, I get a lot of comments like, "Oh my God, Mike, you're clickbaiting us. You're pulling trade rumors out of your..." But things have sped up really quickly, and believe it or not, Davante Adams actually admitted to us his last game as a Raider has already been played. We're gonna take you through everything because I didn't think things would heat up this quickly. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop, like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all of that out of the way, break! We made over $500 this past weekend by playing Prize Picks. I posted both of my picks before Sunday and Monday Night Football on my Instagram story at The Flight Mike. If you aren't signed up for Prize Picks, use my promo code Mikerophone to get a free $50 when you place an entry of $5 or more. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Davante Adams' next chapter wasn't supposed to go down like this at all. He was supposed to reunite with his buddy Derek Carr on the Las Vegas Raiders after telling the Green Bay Packers he was ready to move on, primarily because he was concerned about the Packers' future at QB once Aaron Rodgers retired. The Packers got a hell of a haul for Davante Adams, a first-round pick and a second-round pick, and Davante Adams became the highest-paid wide receiver in the NFL, playing in a state that had no state income tax. The guy got paid and got to reunite with his college QB. Since then, things didn't really go according to plan. After one season, the Raiders, for some reason, decided to side with Josh McDaniels over Derek Carr, who led him to a remarkable season the year prior and also got a huge contract extension as a result of it, and enticed the Raiders to trade for Davante Adams to begin with. As a result, Davante Adams had to play with Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell the very next season, and if you watched the Receiver series on Netflix, you could tell he wasn't very happy.
Bench Jimmy Garoppolo for the rookie Aiden O'Connell.
What was your opinion on that? Well, my opinion on that was that I signed off on that. And that's just the reality of it. You know, I love Jimmy, and he's a great guy, but, you know, something had to happen in order for us to have a chance down the stretch and for me to remain a Raider, in all honesty.
Now, if you looked at Davante Adams' numbers statistically, you wouldn't be able to tell that this was the case. The man has been a first-team All-Pro from 2020 and even his first season with the Raiders in 2022. The man had 14 touchdowns in year one with Derek Carr and still was a 1,000-plus yard receiver with Jimmy Garoppolo / Aiden O'Connell under center. Even though times were tough, Davante Adams was still putting up remarkable numbers. But this year, it seems like things have hit a boiling point. If you guys remember in our previous video about the situation, in the Raiders' loss to the Carolina Panthers, things just didn't seem right. A viral shot of Davante Adams was taken at halftime where the man seemed very unhappy.
Davante Adams shaking his head, can't believe it.
And following the game, Antonio Pierce said something very cryptic.
The team just didn't seem to show up tonight.
No, they didn't. I think as the game went on, I don't think it was a team. I think there was definitely some individuals that made business decisions. And we'll make business decisions going forward as well.
I originally thought this had something to do with Davante Adams, but fans also believe that this may have been a comment directed at Jack Jones. As you can see over here, versus the Panthers, Jack Jones had no interest at all whatsoever attempting to tackle Chuba Hubbard. And as a result, I don't blame people for potentially discrediting my speculative video on Davante Adams, even though the evidence seems to have been pointing towards the Raiders eventually parting ways with Adams. You see, on one hand, Davante Adams clearly misses Aaron Rodgers, or just having a competent QB, especially after playing with Jimmy Garoppolo last year. Davante claimed over the offseason that Aaron Rodgers was in his ear about a reunion.
It was good to see him. We went to dinner at Barry's and sat in the back room and just chopped it up for like 4 hours, so it was good to get that time.
Into next year. I'll see you out there.
And Aaron Rodgers always enjoys to stir the pot. He even said he can't wait to play with him again.
I love Lou Getsy. He's a fantastic coach.
Awesome.
I love Davante. I can't wait to play with him again.
Great.
If you take a look at what's going on with the New York Jets, their offense could definitely use some help. But I don't think this team is really lacking any wide receiver talent, especially with Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams and Alan Lazard. I feel like the Jets need more reps, if anything. But this isn't a video about the New York Jets. We'll discuss whether or not the Jets could trade for Davante Adams in a little bit. This is more to do with the fact that things have gotten so bad between Davante Adams and Antonio Pierce that it seems like Davante Adams has played his final snap for the Raiders. So the Raiders actually beat the Cleveland Browns this past week, and Davante Adams wasn't available because his hamstring hurt. Wink, wink. I mean, Davante Adams was fine last week, but out of nowhere he tweaked his hamstring, so he didn't play this week. Following this matchup versus the Cleveland Browns that the Las Vegas Raiders won, Sports Illustrated tweeted out some news that Davante Adams is likely to be gone if the Raiders get what they want in a trade via Michael Fabiano, which is pretty much what I was speculating a week ago, and Antonio Pierce liked this post. Some Raiders fans that are trying to delude themselves into believing that Davante Adams is happy as a Las Vegas Raider are claiming that Antonio Pierce is just most likely trolling. But here's the thing, when you're a head coach of a football team, the last thing you want to do is to get yourself in media headlines just for the sake of making a little joke with your star wide receiver who seems very unhappy on your team. There's no chance in hell that Antonio Pierce is just trying to stir the pot, because that's a distraction to the Las Vegas Raiders, especially considering the fact that a lot of fans and ownership aren't necessarily sold on Antonio Pierce as a long-term head coach. I mean, Max Crosby and the entire Raiders team really had to vouch for Antonio Pierce in order for him to get the job. So I don't think AP would just go out there and troll just to be funny. I honestly can't even understand what Antonio Pierce's vendetta against his best offensive weapon is, because he won't even refer to Davante Adams by his name. Watch.
Max and Davante at practice this week, and is Michael Mayer back in the building?
But Max and 17 all depends on where they're at health-wise. As of right now, status quo, and Mike is still dealing with personal.
Antonio Pierce got a remarkable opportunity presented to him to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. And so far, in terms of handling this team and handling the team culture, he's done a horrible job. I mean, in every single locker room, you're going to see players that are frustrated and disgruntled, that's for sure. But calling out your wide receiver, saying that he's making business decisions, liking posts saying that Davante Adams might get traded, letting your emotions get in the way of running a successful football team is all indicative of a head coach that is underqualified for the job. Antonio Pierce should have handled this situation with Davante Adams earlier, and he should have handled it behind closed doors. And it's like, when you take a look at the Raiders offense, once you lose Davante Adams, who's your offense? Jacoby Myers, Zamir White, Alexander Madison? I mean, Brock Bowers is awesome, but apart from that, Davante Adams is your best weapon on offense. He's like your only opportunity to make it to the wild card, which, by the way, there's a solid chance that the Raiders could if you just take a look at their schedule. The fact that this has been handled in this way just gives you an idea of how the Raiders handled things in their organization, and it's embarrassing, frankly. And the craziest part about this is Davante Adams would actually make an appearance on Up and Adams, and his reaction is everything you need to know at this point. So he discussed how he hasn't heard from his head coach and the fact that there's been no communication from anybody from the team.
How soon did you hear from coach?
Yeah, I haven't heard from him. I haven't talked to him. So I haven't, I don't know. I don't really know exactly what that was about. Obviously I got, social media is a beast. So it's a lot of people out there that saw it and, wondering what's going on and people reaching out. And yeah, I haven't spoke to him.
I'm surprised by that.
But I haven't, there's been no communication with anybody from the team since that became a thing.
And here's the thing about Davante Adams, he's always been a consummate professional. He's never been a diva wide receiver. I mean, I honestly think the most trouble this man has ever been in was when he shoved that cameraman a year ago. And even that, I'm not really sold on it being on purpose, just given this man's track record. This isn't a guy that I've made a lot of content on for anything other than football reasons. And I don't think he ever wants to be a distraction to his team, even when he's frustrated with his team. But the thing is, there's some things that you can't hide. I mean, he would go into this interview and mention that he is going to control what he can control.
May never play another down as a Raider. What would you say to that?
All I can control is this talk we're having right here, and then after we're done with this, all I can control is the next thing that I'm on to. So I'm gonna get up in a minute and go get a nice workout in, and that's all I can control.
Probably the craziest part of all is this man literally said that he misses his old QB.
Aaron's the type of guy, he may be in a huddle and he'll tell you in a 2-minute situation at the end of the game, 46 seconds left in the game, and he'll say, "Hey, Tate or Garrett, like you remember back in 2022 when we got that one look and you didn't look quick enough. Like I need you to just get your eyes around quick." So, filing that away in your memory bank, dealing with the elephant, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
You got to be able to recall and correct some of those mistakes.
Davante, I think you miss him.
How could you not?
To be honest, I don't blame Davante Adams for any of this. I know fans are going to say,
"But Mike, he made his decision. He wanted to earn more money with the Raiders, so he left."
Well, the thing is, the Packers offered him the same contract. He was just trying to avoid this situation from the get-go. You have to understand that when Davante Adams was traded from the Packers, Jordan Love wasn't the QB that you're currently seeing in front of you. He wasn't necessarily sold on Jordan Love as the team's future at QB, so he opted to join a team that had a quarterback that he already had an established rapport with. He would have stayed with the Packers if Aaron Rodgers was significantly younger. And I guess that's the volatility of football, because he found himself in this situation that he was trying to avoid, playing with quarterbacks that just weren't capable of getting him the football. Now, here's the craziest part of all. Vinny Bonsignore actually tweeted out that a league source with knowledge of the situation confirmed that the Raiders are growing open to the idea of trading Davante Adams. The source said the club has begun reaching out to teams to gauge interest in the veteran wide receiver. And it only took us a few hours before we got explicit confirmation from Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter. So according to Ian Rappaport, Raiders star wide receiver Davante Adams informed the team that he preferred to be traded, per me and Mikerophone. There is nothing imminent, but a situation to watch for sure. Now bear in mind, this is a trade request or demand. I honestly think they're the same exact thing, personally. But here's the crazy part. Ian Rappaport follows this tweet up by saying that Davante could potentially still stay with the Raiders. Rap Sheet says that the Raiders are trying to win games, and there are plenty of scenarios where Davante Adams stays in Las Vegas, but there are also scenarios where he's headed elsewhere and he'll have a market. And after a few moments, Adam Schefter would tweet that according to ESPN sources, Raiders have informed other teams that they would consider trading wide receiver Davante Adams for a package that would include a second-round pick and additional compensation. And I replied to that tweet pretty much what I told you guys. Stephon Diggs got traded for a second-round pick as a 30-year-old. Keenan Allen got traded for a 4th-round pick as a 32-year-old, and Davante Adams is both, but he's in his age 32 season. So I could see anything from a second, maybe a 3rd-round pick being traded for Davante Adams. It's kind of interesting because the Raiders have this history of taking chances on star wide receivers and it not working out for them. Most notably Randy Moss, and more recently Antonio Brown. But there's a huge difference between Randy Moss, Antonio Brown, and Davante Adams. In the case of Randy Moss and Antonio Brown, both of those stars failed the Las Vegas Raiders. In the case of Davante Adams, the Raiders failed him. Davante Adams wanted to be a Raider. He mentioned it multiple times. It's been his lifelong dream to always be a Raider. He genuinely wanted to be there, but it seemed like towards the end of it, Antonio Pierce didn't want him. And it didn't really make a lot of sense to begin with. And it just seems like the Las Vegas Raiders consistently decide to take the wrong side over and over again. I mean, 2 years ago, they decided to take Josh McDaniels' side over Derek Carr, and now it looks like they're willing to take Antonio Pierce's side over Davante Adams. At the end of the day, I don't think the Raiders are in a position to compete for a Super Bowl. Not with Gardner Minshew under center, not with Antonio Pierce as their head coach, not without any weapons on offense save for Brock Bowers, Davante Adams, and I don't really know what's going on with Jacoby Myers this year, but last year he was really solid. And this isn't me bagging on the Raiders, this is just me being realistic. You guys aren't Super Bowl contenders, so you might as well get some assets in return and try to build a contender moving forward. But man, it just seems like the Raiders just can't catch a break. It just seems like they never are capable of making the right decisions or the right moves. And I know it must be very frustrating for Raiders fans because trading for Davante Adams was the most excitement that the Raiders generated since... Damn, bro. When's the last time the Raiders fan base has been excited about anything? So I feel for Raider fans. I mean, trust me, I'm part of a fan base that's consistently let down by the front office as well. But at this point, you might as well move on from Davante Adams and get a second-round pick in return for it. Now, in an ideal world, the Kansas City Chiefs would hit up the Las Vegas Raiders and they'd swing a nice trade for Davante Adams. The problem is the Chiefs are in the Raiders division and they're probably going to be dominating that division for the next decade plus. I doubt the Raiders want to help the Chiefs at all. You can rule out the Chiefs as any possible team that would trade for Davante Adams, but we have a video on that we've already dropped, and I'll leave a link to it in the end screen. Let's break this down, man. The teams that I believe would be the most interested in his services are either the New York Jets, primarily because they could trade for him. When you take a look at the way he affects the cap, the Raiders' cap hit for Davante Adams is currently $25 million, and since the Jets still don't have Hassan Reddick, they have $18 million in cap room. Davante Adams' number jumps up to $44.5 million next year, but the Jets have $87 million in cap space for the next season, which is the fourth most in the NFL. So they could easily hop on the phone and negotiate with the Raiders, and given them being willing to do whatever it takes to make Aaron Rodgers happy, I could imagine that happening.
Aaron's all about the attention to detail. So snap count, that's attention to detail. We got to be locked in on something like that. You know, we always talked about in Green Bay that the play is hard enough to win on its own. So let's not lose it pre-snap. You know, at least make it, you know, a competitive thing. Sometimes you're going to get outmanned. Sometimes you're going to get out-muscled. And, you know, sometimes a guy's going to be faster than you. But make the control variable. At least let's get our pre-snap operation smooth. And, you know, everybody hears the same snap count in the huddle. So there's really no excuse for some of these things. So holding people accountable, I agree.
Davante Adams makes a lot of sense next to Garrett Wilson as well, and could serve as a nice little mentor to Garrett Wilson. Pat McAfee even brought up this prediction to Aaron Rodgers' face.
A lot of news coming out about Davante Adams. Heating up about the Davante Adams Las Vegas Raiders situation. Antonio Pierce like it. Mike Greenberg said he'll do a show shirtless, I think is what he said, if Davante Adams doesn't end up as a New York Jet.
Well, let's say Davante Adams doesn't go to the Jets, which I think would be adorable. Where else could he go? Well, I feel like he'd get the most usage on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Justin Fields has really emerged for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're going to make a video on that very, very soon, especially because he was named the starter recently. But if there's one thing that Fields loves to do is to throw the ball deep. It's a huge reason why DJ Moore is so frustrated with Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears this year, primarily because Shane Waldron likes to use DJ Moore on underneath routes for some reason. So getting Justin Fields some help on the Pittsburgh Steelers and also pairing him with George Pickens, who could also use a veteran mentor, could give the Steelers more of an advantage in the competitive AFC North, which they currently lead, by the way. Finally, probably the coolest idea and a trend that we've seen in years past is every single time a team has a promising rookie quarterback, they eventually trade for a superstar wide receiver one. There's been many instances of this, whether it's the Eagles trading for AJ Brown to help out Jalen Hurts, the Bills trading for Stephon Diggs in order to help out Josh Allen, Texans trading for Stephon Diggs in order to help out CJ Stroud, Cowboys trading for Amari Cooper in order to help out Dak Prescott, the Dolphins trading for Tyreek Hill to make Tua more comfortable. Whenever you have a quarterback on a rookie scale contract, you like to take a huge swing and get him that superstar wide receiver one. Unless if you happen to be Trent Baalke and you hate your quarterback, then you just get him players like Calvin Ridley, Gabe Davis, Zay Jones, and of course, Christian Kirk. Then you watch him completely burn out as your team goes winless on the season. So my dark horse in this race is none other than the Washington Commanders. Getting Jaden Daniels, who so far looks like the best quarterback taken in this NFL draft, a true wide receiver one. And I wouldn't be surprised if they offered up like a second round pick, which is a slight overpay in this instance, to get Davante Adams. But could you imagine Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels, Davante Adams, and Terry McLaurin on one offense? Another team that is set to make a huge trade is none other than the Kansas City Chiefs in order to fill up the void that is left by Rashee Rice. Who are they going to trade for? Well, I have a couple ideas, and I'll leave a link to that in the end screen for you guys to check out. On top of that, if you're a basketball fan, we actually predicted the Knicks making a trade for Karl Anthony Towns on my Evil Twin Brothers basketball channel, The Flight Mike. I'll leave both of those links in the end screen for you guys to check out, and I'll meet you guys there. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.